Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is the Grief of Politics, episode 67. I'm joined by Avin Carroll. Avin, how you doing?
I'm okay.
Good. I have some surprising news that came this morning, but we really didn't have one topic we were going to talk about. We have several. So gird your loins, everybody. Anyway, so before we get it with like which article you want to start with or what hit you in the news and stuff, there's breaking news this morning, Avin, that originally hit Apple News, but is now I'm reading this story. I'm using my phone, so that's why I'm looking off, by CNBC. And here's the headline. I'm just going to read the headline.
Let's hear this.
Trump rips Canada as wildfire smoke spreads, says U.S. will add pollution costs to tariffs.
Oh, yeah, I saw something about this yesterday. Not that headline, but about him musing about the idea of increasing their tariffs because of the smoke.
So, from what I read in the article, a lot of Canada is burning. It's like over 100 acres, I believe, in various parts of Canada.
100 acres?
Oh, it's over. It's...
Try that again, Joe. 100 acres is not a very big wildfire. That's small by wildfire standards.
Well, let's see what this...
It might be 100 separate fires, but it's probably tens of thousands of acres.
Let's see here.
At least thousands of acres.
I'm trying to see if in the article... So it's been, Mark Carney says the wildfire situation has escalated significantly over the last 3 weeks across the country, and particularly in Northwest Ontario. Thousands have been forced to evacuate their communities, not knowing if their homes will survive. It doesn't say the amount. It is a lot. A lot of Canada is burning. So it seems like it's, wind is wind. So I don't know. We're going to talk about some other musings of Trump probably later in the show, but I got to say, Avin, I think I got to agree with a lot of people saying that, man, Trump 2.0, he's getting a little bit unmoored. I think he's 80 years old now. I don't think
he's pandering to the base, man, right? Like, they're causing us to be inconvenienced. It's coming from another country. We have to punish them because, they can control how these wildfires started and putting the fires out. So this is like, you're inconveniencing me for your existence. You need to pay me to exist next to me. This is 100% like Trump. This is who he is. This is how he acts. Like, I'm not surprised at all. I'm just kind of like doing the Captain Picard facepalm.
This
FYI, 955 wildfires actively burning across Canada.
Okay.
Nearly 200 of those in Ontario. And more than a dozen wildfires are actively burning along the northern edge of the bordering U.S. state of Minnesota, spanning more than 73,000 acres just in those dozen fires.
Holy crap. So, this whole... his quote and all that stuff really, or anyway, the quotes I read in the article really has a lot of like, why are all these kids on my lawn energy of like, get off my lawn, like it, I don't know. Where do you, we talked a little bit on the phone last night and we were both kind of flummoxed for like one thing to talk about, hence us doing many stories this episode. Where do you want to start, Avin? Is there something, an article I didn't include that you want to talk about something, or... do you want to go straight to one of the articles?
I think, look, we could just go on without articles and just talk like we were doing last night and wander all over. But I think we should start with the article that you sent on Venezuela, because it hasn't been getting anywhere near as much coverage.
Okay.
And then we can work into the stuff that's a little bit more current. You did not share any articles on probably the most important and pressing factor to all Americans, the reflecting pool. So maybe we can chat about that towards the end.
You know what? You're right. I really dropped the ball. There was like 8 articles I was looking at. When you have to rank them, the reflecting pools, stupidly enough, got knocked down. To be honest, he's probably going to burn another 15 million or whatever it was, trying to get that thing fixed. Or more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I told you last night, like, obviously, was it in February of last year? Or when we took Maduro and we went to Venezuela
It's January.
January of last year or this year. It was
This year.
this year. So we took
Yep.
Maduro in the dead of night. He is now in solitary confinement, from what I heard, and they've taken his wife. She is also in jail. I don't know if she's in solitary, but they took his wife. And now the vice president, I'm trying to find her name now in the, well,
Sure.
for some reason it's, anyway, we basically are running the government of Venezuela. Marco Rubio is running it from the White House. I found an article from the Washington Examiner that was written by Daniel Petraeus it was published on July 17, 2026, called Welcome to Venezuela, American Protectorate. And it basically goes over this idea that, we took Maduro. There was, it says here, after Delta Force swooped into Caracas on January 3rd and captured, so you're right, January, and captured Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, there was widespread anticipation that the country would return to democracy. Better times were thought on the near horizon after more than a decade in which the economy shrank by 3/4 and about a quarter of the population migrated due to political persecution and poverty. The Venezuelan opposition, which had been jailed and exiled for the last quarter century, was suddenly provided a gift from the American president, Maria Corina Machado, who saw her party's 2024 presidential election victory thrown out by Maduro, started making plans to return home. 6 months after Maduro's ouster, none of the above came to pass. And I want to point out before, I'm not going to read the whole article, Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Peace Prize. She gave that Peace Prize to Trump. There was a ceremony, there was a picture of him in the old Oval holding her Peace Prize. So now she is without a Nobel Peace Prize and is not running Venezuela. So, as many people have said, much smarter people than me, everybody bends the knee to Trump and gets nothing. How many times, how embarrassing is it for her to go to the White House? Hey, this thing that I won, and a lot of people think that's really weird that you won this because now you're talking about you want us to bomb Venezuela and you won a peace prize because she wanted Maduro out and all this stuff. She lobbied Trump for all this stuff to happen. I guess Venezuelans at the time were not happy about her. They had obviously been polled and they're like, well, we're unhappy with Maduro. Who would you want to see in charge? And they floated her name, Corina Machado, and they said, no, not her. Anybody but her. So she wasn't popular in her own country. She won a Nobel Peace Prize. She gave that to Trump, and she has nothing. And now Venezuela has not had elections. So we're going to talk about this a little later. That is literally election interference. So we have, hand of God, put our thumb on the scale of the Venezuelan people, and they say, gee, could we maybe not have the puppet of the United States, because that's exactly what the vice president is. I wish I could get her name.
Elsie Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, yes. She was the vice president under Maduro. I've heard some other reporting that she is going to events in incredibly expensive clothing. And so the public is starting to notice, wait a minute, you're the puppet of the United States and now you're walking around with incredibly expensive stuff and we don't have elections. So I wonder how long the clock is ticking where we're going to see some kind of dispute, uprising, whatever you want to call it, in Venezuela if these things don't improve. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio's in his office calling them and, I don't know, dictating to them what they can and can't do. They're selling oil to us probably at a much reduced rate, right? It's probably
so Venezuelan oil's kind of been, as I understand it, it's dirty crude oil. It's not the sweet crude.
It's difficult for us to refine it.
So they're selling it at a reduced rate versus what we would buy if we were buying, sweet crude. But I don't know if they're giving it even deeper. I just know that they're largely selling it to us because we have suspended, or rather, President Trump has suspended the oil embargoes on them and is allowing the trade with us. Also, in this article, something interesting was called out, which was the oil that Venezuela was selling to Cuba has been cut off, and that was something like 70,000 barrels a day, if I remember correctly.
Right. And I could do. I've heard a lot about Cuba lately, and we could do an episode on Cuba. But I'll just say this: if you think a government is going to fail like Cuba, like we keep getting told, my whole life I've been told that the government in Cuba is terrible, and that the people want something different. Could be true, but what I've heard is that the president is still in power, and they're keeping vital systems going even through blockades. So, if their country is so horrific, one, there has been an exodus, but people are still in the country, so there hasn't been a max. I don't know about mass, but no, like the country is still has a population, meaning there hasn't been a max exodus to somewhere else. Also, if the country was so terrible and going to fail, then you'd imagine we need to put our thumb on the scale and say you can't export oil to Cuba. You're Venezuela. I mean, obviously we took over, whatever. You know who basically told us to go kick rocks is the president of Mexico, Scheinbaum. She's been selling oil to Cuba, and Trump apparently, I read this a while ago, called her a couple months ago and was like, "You need to stop doing that." She's like, "No, I'm my own country. This is our oil. We can do whatever we want. Like we're pumping our own oil. We can do whatever we want. Just go kick rocks, man." Like, I don't know what to tell. I mean, Venezuela's thing is obviously very special because we took their leader, and now what I think is so funny is we covered it on this podcast. Trump had the oil executives in his office, and he's like, "Hey, man, Venezuela is an open book. What do you guys want to do?" And what was it? Exxon was like, "No, I don't think we're gonna go. I don't think we're gonna go because it was tough. One, like you said, the crude isn't as sweet. We have to take a little bit more time and energy to pump that stuff. It's just too much of a logistic nightmare. Also, the price of oil is good right now. So why do we want to pump more oil and lower the price of oil? We're doing fine. This is before Iran."
I understand, if I remember, I should say, not understand, but if I remember correctly, the primary reason that the American oil executives didn't want control over occupation of ownership of Venezuelan oil fields and oil refineries was more so to do with the fact of like it's incredibly politically unstable.
Yeah.
And investing an insane amount of money over multiple years into the area to only have it taken away from them again is just not worth it. And that they felt it was better for them to invest in areas that are more predictable and more stable.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was the number one reason where and plus I think they'd said, "Hey, we tried this," and hence them knowing that it was politically unstable. They're not looking at a magic 8 ball. They had been in the country, I think, for decades and said, "We're done. Like it's too much. We've invested too much capital. We're not getting a return." And I just think this is something that's going on. I guess this is the unreported episode or the underreported episode. That's what I'll call this. I just think because we did this in January and it's like, oh, deal done. Maduro's in a cell somewhere in solitary confinement. We'll deal with him later. Venezuela's ours. Their vice president, now president, is doing what we want, so we're done. But I don't think so. Like I said, I think something's going to happen if the elections get pushed. In fact, they'll do a really hot Google swap here, or a search really quick here. When does Venezuela... Whoops. Of course, it's World Cup stuff. When does Venezuela have elections? There we go. Oh, great. Oh, good. In April of 20, there's a article entitled "Democratic Elections in Venezuela Won't Happen Overnight." So, yeah.
2020? So 6 years ago?
This article came out, where was that? April 20th, 2026, so this year. Democratic elections in Venezuela won't happen overnight. Despite mounting demands for Venezuela's political opposition for free and fair elections, the Trump administration... I'm just going to click on this really quick. This is an organization. I haven't really heard of it before. Despite mounting demands for Venezuela's political opposition for free and fair elections, the Trump administration and Venezuelan interim government, that's an interesting way to put that, headed by former Vice President Delcy Rodrigo, have thus far avoided specific commitments on when elections will take place or how they might be organized. Okay, and this is a paper arguing that there is not a moment to lose. So basically, we don't know. We don't know when the elections are going to be. We have no idea. Good luck, Venezuela. And I just think if this continues, there's going to be just growing.
You guys have elections?
Yeah. We took the president and elected the vice president and said, wait, you guys have Democratic. It's that meme, the Will Sommer meme when he's like, you guys have elections? That's crazy. I just think this is going unreported and it's going to be a bigger problem. And if we saw anything like we did with Iran, if we have to do anything militarily, we're going to have to move a group. We moved a group of carriers and stuff to the Middle East, and then we might have to move them back to Venezuela to do this. So that's good. So what say you, sir? Do you agree, disagree?
I don't know that we necessarily have our thumb on the electoral process there. I definitely do think we have our thumb on the existing government there, but I also don't think that we're wielding the influence that we have for the benefit of Venezuelans. I will say it is for the benefit of Trump's friends and allies and the U.S. economy, particularly given what's going on right now in Iran.
Oh, yeah. So we're getting some oil.
Keeping that office in place, keeping that administration in place, and using the influence that we have, the control we have over Rodriguez to get what we want out of the Venezuelan country and people is very much a Trump thing. And I would wager that the vast majority of people that are pro-Trump could give two craps about the Venezuelan people if what President Trump is doing is good for America.
Right.
The disadvantage being, of course, it's extremely short-sighted, and the instability that comes along is going to make things worse, not better, long-term. And again, just makes us the global bully. And I think a lot of pro-Trump people want to be the global bully. I think they want America to take its strength and to make people do what we want them to do, and they don't give a crap that once everyone else rises up, because we're the bully, we won't be invited on the schoolyard anymore.
I think you said it's a short term, obviously gain for long term, whatever pain we keep hearing about oil prices. But I think arguably if this would have been unsuccessful or not have happened, we're already seeing the ramifications of this, and that is Iran. A lot of people have said, hey, if this didn't happen, they kept looking back to Venezuela going, well, Trump had a win in Venezuela. So, of course, he thought Iran was going to be easy. So if he didn't do this and meddle in Venezuela, we probably wouldn't have had Iran. I
mean, yeah, I feel bad for Venezuelans. I feel bad for those that have fled their country because they weren't happy with Chavez and then Maduro and now Rodriguez, that they can't go back to their country or at least don't want to because it's just not safe or
people were
a place where they can prosper.
Yeah, or people saw what happened. Maybe they supported Trump. They didn't like Maduro. They saw him get taken. And they said, here we go.
There were a lot of American Venezuelans, or at least people that fled Venezuela living in the United States, that were really happy about Maduro being taken and arrested.
I wonder...
They were hoping that his government would be removed and that they could get some stability again.
Yeah, I wonder... But, I would like some reporters, maybe there is something, maybe some people circling back around going, are you guys still excited? It's been, 7 months, no elections. Doesn't seem like it's that stable. Do you guys, are you excited, Because I know...
To some degree, I will say this, right? They need to maintain a level of stability and kind of status quo. They need to get that under their feet before they can have another election. But in my eyes, Darcy's not going to make any moves. Rodriguez isn't going to make any moves until she can do the same thing that Maduro did and completely rig the elections. I don't know exactly, but reading this article, they said that when Machado won, that Maduro just threw out the results.
Yeah, I mean, he literally interfered in the election and said, I mean, there was fraud. He said, yeah, screw these votes. I'm the president. And it's like, wait a minute. That's not how this is supposed to work, And so every time Trump, I mean, I'll give Trump the benefit of that. When he craps on Maduro for rigging the elections, I'm like, well, that did happen. Like he did literally throw this out. So Avin, even though I bought the car and I have loaded the car up with gas, where do you want to go? We've done Venezuela. We have a couple other things. Where do you want to go next?
Let me review our articles real quick, and we can take a look at it. Since we're already talking and they're related, although all three of these are actually kind of related in their own different ways, let's talk about Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And what's going on there?
See if I have this. Okay, that's not that one. Okay.
The threat to Saudi Arabia's main oil export route is growing.
Yep.
This is a Wall Street Journal article. It was published today at 2:33 a.m.
Yesterday.
Eastern time.
Today's 18th.
Today, July 18th. Today is the 18th.
Oh, really?
July 18th.
Oh, I think I clicked the old link, so mine only says yesterday. So anyway, it was updated.
They updated it today. That's why.
Mm-hmm. So they must have updated again. Anyway, what I don't think is reported is there's this other pipeline, which is the East-West pipeline that goes basically from Qatar, which is the other side of the strait. So you have the Iran side of the strait and the Qatar side of the strait. There's a great map. If you're listening to this as a podcast, thank you so much. Like and subscribe. But you might want to either read this article, because they actually have a map. In my brain, I kind of knew some of this stuff, but it's good that they literally say, here's where the East-West pipeline goes. So it goes from Qatar all the way to through Saudi Arabia to Yanbu, and then it goes out that strait, which is Bab al-Mandeb, I think, if I'm probably not saying it right. But that's the other way you get out of the whole Strait of Hormuz. So since the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, oil is going through here, and they have picked up production. Like I think in this article it says that they're picking up more as far as production of oil goes and export. But obviously it can't meet the same demand as the Strait of Hormuz. And the deal is...
Well, and if I remember correctly, when this all started and there was discussion about the alternative port here, we'll say Yanbu, whatever. I'm going to butcher it no matter how I do it. If I remember correctly, that port doesn't have the same capacity as the port near Qatar. And so it's not able to fill up as many ships, or maybe fill the ships as quickly. Maybe it doesn't have as many piers. I don't know for sure. But, I mean, they're still shipping a significant amount of oil, but it is... I don't know what the number was, but it's like a 40% reduction in output or something like that. It's like from 7.3 million to like 4.3 million barrels a day or something.
Also, because of the war in Iran, the Iranians have hit oil targets and tanker, storage facilities in this area. So not only is it them being able to pump stuff out, they're having to shut down oil facilities and LNG facilities and things like that because they don't want to get bombed and they don't want it to blow up. And then a lot of them said, hey, if we turn these off, this isn't something you can hit a switch. Like, it takes years for this stuff to get up and going. And if people don't know, I'm just going to read the beginning of this article. Growing hostilities between Saudi Arabia and Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis militia are raising the threat to a crucial oil export route that the kingdom has been using to work around the blockage in the Strait of Hormuz. A pipeline routing oil west across the country to a port on the Red Sea has allowed it to keep up export volumes during the U.S.'s war with Iran. From there, its tankers sail through the checkpoint at Bab al-Mandeb and out its main markets in Asia, stabilizing prices as shipping in the Persian Gulf has been bottled up by Iranian attacks. But Trump, this was underreported. I want to see if they have it here. There was a truce so they can move through, but Trump greenlit Saudi Arabia attacking the Houthis. So the Houthis are the ones that are like patrolling these waterways, and they shot our ships when we were going in there, when we were sending stuff to Israel because they were upset over what was going on in Gaza, and they fired on our ships. This was a big deal with Biden. Biden said we were going to shoot them. Biden was asking the tarmac, are the rockets, is it working against the Houthis? And he said, nope, but we're going to do it anyway, which is such an American answer. I got to hand it to him. Not a good strategy, but if you're going to be like, is it working? Nope, we're doing it anyway. So anyway, Trump greenlit, which is, again, I'm learning about this stuff. Avin, I don't know. You're learning about this stuff. You think Trump would have a lot more advisors that would know this and say, sir, whatever Saudi Arabia says they want to bomb the Houthis, just kind of like sidestep it and say, hey, we're looking into it. I don't want to totally greenlight this attack because that's the other pipeline, and I'm kind of attacking Iran right now. But Trump just said, sure. So now Saudi Arabia is bombing the Houthis, and they could start shooting on the ships going out of their port. So, again, this is something that is underreported. So, yes.
It's being reported, right? I mean, the Wall Street Journal isn't a small publication, right?
No,
This isn't just some.
I'm just saying I don't hear it talked about in a lot. I mean, I've heard it in like nerdy political podcasts, but like
Yeah,
CBS
there's
and stuff
not.
isn't really.
There's so much other noise in the American political system right now that I'm not surprised we're not hearing about it, right?
Mhm.
Like, there's so much going on between the Save America Act, between midterms and what's going on there, uh, what's happening with Iran, what's happening with Ukraine. Um, Still, we're getting relatively frequent, although less frequent, trickles on Epstein. Um,
Yeah.
it's yeah, there's just so much going on, and then the news cycle has been obsessed with the reflecting pool for weeks. Um,
I will
like,
I will shout out to all the on the street reporters who like now people are going to checking out how bad the reflecting pool is, and there's been some pool people there that work on pools, and they're like, "No, this is shoddy work." Which I love it when you're on vacation and you're like, you could see it literally a mile away, going, "That's not. This is what I do for a living, and that's terrible." They did a terrible job. There's a lot of
I
people.
mean,
Yeah,
that was the prediction before the work was even done,
well,
because this company's never actually done the work.
yeah, well,
And they did it. I was like, all right, we'll give them the benefit, right? Like they do like ceiling work. That I mean, it's not like they don't. It's just not this type of ceiling. And obviously, they did a crap job. And of course, you know, where's the 300-foot gash? Oh,
yeah.
right, it's not there. Anyway, sorry,
Oh, you mean all
I've
the
digressed onto another topic.
yeah. All the
So
cameras up there, they didn't catch the vandals. It's because they do have cameras around the reflecting pool for security
that
reasons.
Yeah. So, but back to what's going on with Saudi Arabia and the oil there, right? Like, I think one of the things that was really interesting in this article, too, is that they call out that, we greenlit the sale of more munitions to Iran. Or not Iran. No. We greenlit the sale of more munitions to Saudi Arabia
Right.
for them to carry out these strikes and to do this stuff. And it was called out that if it does get out of hand, if Saudi Arabia isn't able to keep the Houthi rebels, I mean, I don't know why we're calling them rebels. I mean, they control the country, the leaders.
Yeah, they talked about the opposition
Yeah.
leaders and stuff that are
Like the Houthi group, if they want to start lobbing missiles and drones and other stuff at ships in there, like Saudi Arabia's going to have to contain that because the United States is already focused on Iran and doesn't really have the capacity to be focused on Houthis as well.
right.
So, I mean, we'll see. And one of the other things that they talked about was that in the eyes of the Houthis, Iran has the upper hand against the United States. And so they might be a little bit more emboldened to do this kind of stuff. So right now they're saying that it hasn't escalated to that point, but that there is a very high likelihood that it could escalate to that point.
Right. I mean, all we did is knock out their main leader and in Iran and two tiers of leadership. And then at the funeral, everybody showed up and said, "We hate America." And we're like, let's work with these guys. And you keep hearing Trump, or I think it's JD Vance, who's like, what's really cool? Have you heard this quote? JD Vance said, what's cool is meeting all these Iranian people we're getting to work with every day. It's like, what, JD? You're right. It is cool if you could work with these people every day. So, if only someone in the government, apparently there was an article that came out, since we're talking about Iran, that the Iranian leadership or the negotiating team sent JD Vance a note, like a letter, saying, "Hey, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, they're undermining everything you're doing, man, because they're just looking at this as a cash cow. And you're actually going to the table in good faith saying, we got to work out a deal. Now, do I like JD Vance? Do I think he's great? No. But if he's going to sit down and try to negotiate with him, when you get a note from Iran that says, like, hey, man, I think your people are really kind of knocking your knee, your legs out from under your knees here. And JD Vance responded to this. People were sending him the articles that said this. And he said, "Oh, this is not a nothing burger or whatever." And a reporter actually replied to that and said, "Why are you responding to any of this? Like, just let it go. Like, if it's not true, whatever." So, I don't know, man. It's a mess up situation. I hope that this strait stays open. So, because I mean, apparently the global oil market is like, hey, we're getting near fumes as far as our reserves, not only the national reserves, but where we're able to pull from to buy oil. Only so much can come out of whatever. I again heard reporters say that, hey, maybe you'll see a big green energy push. I do know on my YouTube page, I'm getting a lot more hits for, hey, do you want to see new batteries that you could power your home with? Do you want to see new solar panel technology? A lot of that is hitting my timeline. And part of me thinks, yes, I do. Like, I would like to. This would be great. So,
And given the lightning storm we had yesterday, day before,
Thursday,
thunderstorm,
Thursday, yeah.
the lights flickering here. I was like, man, maybe we should get one of those like kind of smaller portable home backups just in case.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Seattle working, and there was a crew doing stuff on the roof, and they were welding, and they called it. And then they were all talking to each other like, should we call it? And there was a big thing of thunder, and you saw lightning, and the guy goes, "I'll call our boss." Okay, we're done. We're done. Like, should we? I don't know. Boom. Well, we're done here. Pack it up. Like, see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a good night. Yeah. So the last article, Avin, that we're going to go to, since we've done the other two, is, of course, the Save America Act. Now, Avin, I have heard a little bit about the Save America Act. I've heard why it is not a good idea. Have you heard why it is what have you heard about the Save America Act? I'll start with that. I'll start with that.
I'll find this interesting, right? Like, I have a couple of friends in my social media that I haven't talked to in quite a while. Unfortunately, my one truly conservative friend that I could have these conversations with, didn't very often, but at least could, passed away recently.
Oh.
But people are still active on social media, and I still see a lot of stuff posted. I don't see a whole lot of commentary or posts on the Save America Act.
Yeah.
I see it on a lot of other stuff, but my conservative friends aren't really talking about this. So I don't know if it's just kind of a nothing burger to them.
I think that's what it seems, because I see pundits talking about it a lot, because I watch right-wing stuff.
Yeah,
They're talking about the Save America Act. But like you said, I don't see the Facebook posts. I don't see the X social media posts from normal people. It's mostly pundits. I've heard why it is a bad idea, and I've heard why conservatives say it is a good idea. But in the same breath, I've also heard things going, hey, this like fake electing, the fake votes is like, 0.0001% of the total.
The Cato Institute is by no means Republican, but
very libertarian.
They're very libertarian. They're probably politically more aligned with the Trump administration than any Democrat administration. And their data came out and was like, over the last, what was it, like when they released their report earlier this year, it was something like over the last 40 years or 50 years, there's been like 1,000 documented cases of voter fraud. And most of those were American citizens voting for a deceased relative, or like someone who had recently deceased, or voting for something else. Like, the number of illegal immigrants that have ever been caught voting in that time frame is even smaller, because like those people don't want to get kicked out of the country. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. They know that they're not here legally. They want to be invisible. So this whole like belief system that Democrats are out there flooding the system with these illegals, right? Like, one of my friends posted, and it's talked a little bit about it in this article. One of my friends posted yesterday, after all of this was talked about Thursday by the president, that there was 158,000, 9,000 illegal registrations, duplicate registrations in Michigan. And I'm like,
Okay.
okay, fine. Like, that's a terrible thing. We need to look into that. But that doesn't guarantee that any of those duplicate registrations ever voted.
Also, yeah,
And if they did, that those votes actually stuck. Because
yeah.
if the same person votes twice, the system should see that and kick the second one out. Also, have a very stern conversation with that person. And I don't know, but isn't like the Michigan Secretary of State Republican?
Yeah. Also, I will see your Cato Institute and raise you the Heritage Foundation. So the Heritage Foundation released a study right here, and somebody broke it down in an org. It says, among the examples in the heritage documents are cases from 1948 when Harry S. Truman beat Thomas Dewey, and a case from 1972 when Richard Nixon defeated George McGovern. Only 105 of its 749 cases came from within the past 5 years. In reviewing billions of votes cast, the Heritage Foundation identified just 10 cases involving in-person impersonation fraud at the polls, fewer than the number of members on the president's commission. The database includes only 41 cases involving non-citizens registered, voting, or attempting to vote over 5 decades. So, Avin, I'm terrible at math. That's less than 10 a year, highlighting the absurdity of President Trump's claim that millions of non-citizens voted in the 2016 election alone. A vast majority of fraud, quote, examples cited by the Heritage Foundation would not be addressed by the voter suppression laws its staff supports, including Election Integrity Commission members Hans von Spakowski, a senior legal fellow at Heritage. Von Skopowski distributed copies of the database at the panel's first meetings in July. Many cases highlighted in the database show that existing laws and safeguards are already preventing voter fraud. The ineligible voters or individuals engaging in misconduct were discovered and prevented from casting a ballot. Quote, it's been clear for months this commission is premised on the lie that widespread voter fraud exists in America. This database is the latest attempt by some of the commission's members to propagate that lie, unquote, said Rudy Mabani, Spitzer Fellow and Senior Counsel in Brennan Center's Democracy Program and lead author of the analysis. A quick dive into Heritage's database reveals a completely different picture that the top line talking points suggest, and the consequences to voters could be severe. So basically, hey man, we really looked and we really tried. We can't really find a lot of voter fraud, and when there is, the system takes care of it. In Arizona, they have paper ballots, and they've hand counted them 3 times. And Biden won all 3 times. In Washington State, we cast ballots. They go through a machine, but people still hand tabulate the ballots, right? So that's what it is. That's what we do, Especially 2020, that was like the most reviewed and litigated election, I think, in our lifetimes, even with the Bush or the Gore
and
Bush
every single accusation of mass fraud was kicked out for lack of evidence.
There was over 40 court cases that
it was closer to 60.
Yeah. And I remember reading that at the time where lawyers would write up these papers of oh my God, there's widespread fraud. And then they'd have to go in there, it wasn't them writing, it was their firm. And then the lawyer would have to go up in front of the judge, and the judge's listen, we're here in Michigan. I remember Michigan was one of the states. We've looked through everything, we've recounted. What evidence do you have to bring forward? We'll hear it. And the lawyer's I can't stand by these statements, because they know if they lie in a court of law, they could be disbarred. So they were just hey man, I work for this, this firm, but I'm not. I was told to come here at this day
if I
at 9 a.m.
correctly, Rudy Giuliani was deposed, and his whole thing fell apart when it was actually in deposition, where he's I'm not saying there's fraud. There's just some questionable. If I remember correctly, that video actually came out.
Yeah.
But
also recently, Mike Johnson, when California happened and Spencer Pratt lost, I think Mike Johnson's quote was, we just know it in our gut that there's fraud. It's I mean, I know a lot of things in my gut that aren't true, but like, where's the beef, man? Like, where's the beef?
FYI, I did look it up. The Secretary of State and Governor of Michigan actually are Democratic, so
Oh.
I could
Oh,
see where
did
there
they
would be
just flip?
accusations that the Democratic power would
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
I don't know.
I know they're having an election coming up with a couple candidates. One of them is a DSA member, so everybody's, you know.
Could have sworn that Gretchen Whitmer's been in.
No, she's
power
been
there
in.
for quite some time.
Gretchen Whitmer's been there for a while. Is Slotkin the other one? Slotkin's from Michigan. Alyssa
Well, so
Slotkin.
the Secretary of State's like Jocelyn something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jocelyn Benson.
Also, I think it's telling. There was a new DNI, James something or other. Did you hear about this? He had his Jay Clayton. He had a confirmation hearing the other day. Did you see any clips from that or hear about that? So he had a confirmation hearing, and John Ossoff of Georgia, I think John Ossoff of Georgia, anyway, was on the committee and really asking questions. Said, did Joe Biden win the 2020 election? And he said, "Oh, I don't want. I'm not going to answer that." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And during one point, John Ossoff said, "What is going on?" He literally said to him, "What is going on?" Because the guy literally it was silence for like 20 seconds where the guy wouldn't answer. And I just think it's crazy. They're like, "Well, it was certified for Joe Biden to win." It's like, well, you're sidestepping the thing. Like, it's crazy.
And they still get away with it, and they still do it. Didn't he also get called out in that same hearing for just stroking the president's ego?
Well, yeah,
One of the actual.
that's what Ossoff said. He said, don't. Ossoff called him out and said, "Don't you find this demeaning to do this? Like, to sit in front of us and not just say that Joe Biden won the election, because you're trying to impress, your boss or your future boss that this is how things went." Because if he says that Joe Biden won the election, is he gonna? I mean, Ossoff didn't say this, but is he afraid that his nomination's going to get pulled if he looks at everybody and says, "Yeah, Joe Biden won the election"? Is Trump really going to pull his?
Probably will.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
I would expect him to be honest. Actually.
Yeah, to me this is crazy, and I mean, with Trump's election fraud thing, many people have gone through this paperwork. We talked about it last night. Man, this just feels like reheated pizza. Like it's just one of those things where you're like, I've heard all this. Yes, trying to interfere. There's a difference between interference and I can't even think of the other word, influence. There's a difference between election interference and election influence. And hey, man, as soon as social media came out, there's election interference. And it seems like from this paperwork that got released, that the Trump administration released, it was interference. But again, it sounded like the guardrails held. I mean, Christopher Wray went out there. Bill Barr went out there. They all said, hey, they're really fair elections, but we are looking at these other places that are trying to interfere with our elections, but they didn't steal it, or they didn't get into the voting machines. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. They just did what normal people do and buy ads and use social media to try to influence people's perception of what is going on, which seems just something that we have to deal with now in like a new, and technologically advanced society but it doesn't seem like there's interference. So,
I mean, we've been saying it for a super long time, right? Like, the evidence for interference is so minimally small. Now, with that said, like, Americans, even Democrats, broadly support voter ID laws. Mm-hmm. And almost every state has some form of you have to prove who you are. Yep. And basically every single state has some form of, or not some form, has very strict laws and rules and punishments around fraud. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, it already exists because the states don't want it. I think it's really interesting that the president's own release that he did this week, and this is actually something that one of my other conservative friends posted, like, people calling the release of the data a cell phone don't understand. It's a completely different thing. I'm like, no, it is a cell phone. Go read the actual data. Like, it point blank says China did not interfere with the election. It point blank says that Russia tried to interfere with the election and made actual direct efforts to interfere with our election. Now, it doesn't prove that Trump was involved in it, but it does definitely show that there was interference.
Right.
But it actually also called out that the biggest risk to the American elections is someone undermining the trust of the process. And the biggest person attacking the trust of our elections right now is our president.
Yeah. And also, for everybody out there that believes that, like, elections should be secure and, like, we don't want illegal people voting, Mark Wayne Mullen, who's the head of the DSS, said, we're going to start reprimanding states and not giving out grant money if you don't do what we want. And I think this is even more of a danger to the integrity of elections, because if you start dictating to states what they can do, you want a decentralized election, because then Russia has to look at 50 different states and whatever runoffs and down ballots. If the government...
You want a decentralized election because when your party loses in whatever situation that they lose, because they will, this is how our process works, you don't want the other party to have universal control over the elections.
Yeah, so when they get
there is a desperation in this administration to get control over the elections, and it's not because there's broad fraud. Just because you're not happy with the results doesn't mean it's fraud. It's because you want to stay in power. That's the only reason that you would ever want this, because the federal government isn't in any way, shape, or form supposed to be involved in the election process, other than certifying it in the House and the Senate. Now, I read a really scary hypothesis. I don't know, maybe I want to call it scary, but definitely like one of those things that you're like, oh man, that could happen and that would be bad. That assuming that the Democrats do clean house in the midterms, because the Republican Party is so unpopular right now. And the reason they're unpopular right now is because they are feckless, weak sycophants who can't stand up for their own principles and instead just bend over and kiss the stinky ass of the president. Like, that's your problem. It has nothing to do with President Trump. It has to do with the fact that you can't actually have your own idea. You're incapable of it.
That's true.
When they lose, the conversation is that Mike Johnson, if he stays in office, or whoever takes his place, someone even more devoted to the president, will not certify the elections from the states that they lose, because they'll only bring in the new Republicans, but they won't bring in any of the new Democrats.
They won't seat like Johnson did with that one representative, I think in Arizona,
out of Arizona,
where she's like, hey, I've been waiting like a month, or 2 months. We've been trying to get a hold, and Johnson could be like, well, these Democrats, it's fraudulent, so I'm not going to seat them, and then it's, I don't know, it's one of those things. I had a somewhat of a point, and then it just escaped my brain. I just think that like it's crazy to me that like many people have pointed out, Trump is not going to be forever. He's not. Like, no matter his health or whatever, he's not. And so it's insane to me that people think that this is how everything is going to go forever and ever. It is nuts to me that happens. And I'm just kind of blown away that people think like, well, I got to ride or die because this is going to be the rest of my life. And it's like, no, it's not.
I read an article this week that was talking about Blanche, because of course there was the confirmation hearings for him this week too. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that it called out was that like even Republicans know that what they're doing is wrong. Because Blanche, and their reasoning behind this is Blanche at some event was talking about, like, if we don't win, there's going to be, like, all of us are going to have hearings and investigations.
Yeah.
And, like, okay, then, maybe you shouldn't be doing stuff that's worthy of investigations.
Yeah, maybe don't break the law.
Like, right. And if you go back 50 years, we didn't do this. We have become more and more divided, but the division in our country is dramatically driven by social media, because it's so easy for us to outsource our trust to a more regular person than to a news source. And so we give that trust way more readily when someone comes forward and is like, I'm a plumber and I know that the problem with the reflecting pool is because the plumbing isn't right.
Yeah.
So like,
you're a plumber.
Okay, I trust you. regardless of whether or not you're lying or not, because you say that's who you are, and I have no evidence otherwise. Like, I'm just gonna outsource trust.
Right.
So the idea was that, like, even Blanche is aware of the fact that, like, if you lose, it's not just the president; it's everyone who is supporting him blindly that is at risk.
Yeah. So I remember my point. Sorry, I got to say this before I forget it again. So my point was, people keep saying, well, Democrats are unpopular too. Democrats are popular, which they are. But I think what I've read is the Democratic establishment is unpopular. All like the Chuck Schumers, the Hakeem Jeffries. They're like, well, we don't want to move this too far on this issue. We don't want to move. We got to stay in the center. And the people that are winning right now are DSA members. Zoran Mamdani, the people that he backed. These people are winning.
The people that are winning right now are DSA members, but they're not winning because they're DSA. They're winning because they're populist. They're winning because Americans are suffering. Because we can't buy groceries. Because gas is expensive. Because rent is expensive. Because we're not participating in the American economic benefit, right? Like, our economy is booming. Stock market's going crazy. People at the top are getting rich like crazy, and the average everyday American is barely seeing their wages grow as fast as inflation, if not slower than inflation, right? And the boom that we had from 2020 to 2024 or so in inflation, like how much things grew in cost, like wages went up, but not as fast as inflation.
Yeah. Well, also the inflation was going down when Biden left. It was like, what do they call that? A soft landing, where it was like slowly ticking down.
So that was the idea, right? They were trying to hit that.
They thought there was going to be, but then he left and it started to tick back up again or whatever.
Well, and of course now inflation is back up in the threes again. It was down into the high twos, but we were coming back down. And then of course we bring in Kevin Warsh, who's in the Fed, who's supposed to do what President Trump wants and start raising rates because that's going to help. But now he's in a bind. He can't do it because inflation's up.
Yeah. So I wonder if he's going to be out. What was I going to say? So I just think, like, listen, man, like, just if you're on the right side of the aisle and you're listening to this, like, honestly ask yourself, like, is this worth it? Is all this worth it? Like, listen,
is my life better today than it was 2 years ago? Not because you hated President Biden and you were just depressed and ashamed to be an American citizen because of Biden, but in all, like, practicality, when you were in your day-to-day, like, is your life better than it was 2 years ago?
Yeah, also... go ahead, sorry.
Because I'm going to bet that for the vast majority of Americans, the answer to that is no. The only people who are benefiting are people who are actively participating in the economic system. And when I say that, I mean, like,
well, they're addressing
investing in stock and other stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, my point again was like you said, like the DSA members that are focusing on affordability are winning races. Some of them have just won. I would argue that Zoran Mamdani has delivered on some of the things that he promised, and he's delivering to normal New Yorkers to make things more affordable. We'll have to see in the long run if he does more or less, if it hurts the state. But right now he has delivered on certain things. He also just announced that he's not taking a pay increase, that he's making enough money, which is like crazy that a public official is like, no, keep your money. But I'll say this. On the other side, you have Republicans saying affordability is a hoax created by the Democrats. What is the phrase I just said earlier in the podcast? Short-term pain, long-term gain, which that long-term keeps getting longer and longer. Then also, hey, literally on Fox News, tighten your belt, buckle up, buttercup, we're in this for we're doing this. This is what it is. Deal with it, you woke libtards. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you...
It's not the woke libtards that are suffering. I mean, let's be honest. The parts of the country that are the most affected by this are the most red.
Yeah. The cuts in Medicare and Medicaid, the social safety net that gets taken away from people. There was people are losing their mind. I think it was CNBC. Somebody released a study and they did like the top 10 worst states to live in, and they were all red states. and everybody's like, oh, their populations are growing, so this is crap. So like, if these states really sucked, why are people moving there? But they looked at like, when people live there, what kind of opportunity do you have? What is the the cost of living may be cheap, but the schools are terrible. You don't have access to certain like services that you would on another state. So like, yes, people are moving there because it's cheaper, but do they have the same quality of life that they did in other states? And all 10 of them are red states. So it's like, I don't want to point the finger and say you guys screwed up. I'm just saying, like, just because people move from one state to another isn't the thing of like the ultimate thing of like, you get somewhere and you're like, this will be great. And then you're like, I don't like this so much. This isn't what I wanted. Here's a bunch of stuff that I don't like. So we're about to end though, Evan. Is there anything you want to plug before we're out of here?
I mean, same stuff I usually plug. Last weekend, I recorded an episode of the Gaming with Grief podcast with you, your other podcast.
Yeah, please check that out.
Which, by the way,
it came out on the 15th, and we talked about the Xbox layoffs and the gaming stuff.
Gaming industry layoffs in general. I will say, Joe, please find a reason to have me on for positive stuff. Because, like, you're continuing the association of Avin
the trend
with
of
negative, grief-worthy things. Yeah. But, like, maybe there should be a light at the end of the grief tunnel for Gaming with Grief.
Maybe you know what maybe we'll do something
possibly. And then of course I've got Your Agent Guide, my own YouTube channel, Instagram page where I post pretty regularly just updates on what's going on with the real estate industry. The YouTube channel I haven't updated in a while, but there is a kind of what the
like a newsletter
influencer community calls evergreen content, stuff that is relevant no matter what. So if you're thinking about buying or selling a house, it could be useful.
Did you figure out how people can subscribe to your newsletter? That was something I brought up in the Gaming with Grief episode of like how I got your newsletter. And I guess just go on Facebook and type in Your Agent Guide and follow the account, because I think that's how I got your newsletter. So maybe give that a shot. I don't know if Avin knows another way we could update that. But if you like this episode, please like and subscribe and, share with friends or family. Again, it's the worst pitch ever, but the pitch of the podcast is two people that have been friends for a very long time mildly disagree. So not a good pitch, but that's just what the show is.
Right now.
Yeah,
right now. We disagreed more during the Biden period.
Yep. I will say the best diss I ever heard of Biden was that he is just a sleepy coat rack, which I think is a very good diss of Biden. Also,
why Sleepy Joe stuck.
Yeah. Also, he just came out with a new video because he's got a book coming out or something, and he did a promotion for it, like a video. And I watched it, and he was worse than ever, mumbling, quiet. And somebody pointed out when they posted the video, they reposted it, and they said, the funny thing is this is pre-recorded, and this is the best take. And so, like, you can't hear him. You don't know what's going on. They had to put the text of the book up, like, over him or, in the lower third to be like, just so you guys could hear what it's called. Here's the book. So, hey, man. Yeah.
I will say this, because when you bring that up, that reminds me. Something else to pitch, but not separate. Something related to this. If you're still here, you're
55
pro-Trump supporter.
Yeah, 50 some odd minutes in.
Yeah. Past all of our other promotional stuff, I'm going to bring something up. So, like, whoever sticks around is going to hear this. If you're a conservative voter who maybe held your nose and voted for Trump, or you're someone who truly believes in him and is still completely supporting his policies and the actions of this government, I would say only one thing to you specifically. Well, no, I've said a lot. I'm going to add one more thing.
One more thing to the main.
If you were, like, pulling your hair out frustrated with Democrats not being willing to admit how poor Joe Biden's health was and how ridiculous some of his policies were, and you were just beside yourself thinking this is so ridiculous that Democrats would support this and not see what's happening, I would plead with you, don't be a Democrat.
Yeah.
Hold your own party and your own president to the same standard that you asked Democrats to do.
Be the better
Trump
party.
Is in terrible health.
Yeah, be the better party.
Same as Biden.
Yeah.
Right? But like, if you're going to claim the moral high ground, earn it.
Yeah. Also, I did realize this. I just had an epiphany. Biden has quiet aging, where he mumbles and can't articulate and he gets really quiet. Trump has loud aging, where Trump just yells into the mic and like, you know, it's like they have different variable levels of aging where Biden is shrinking and Trump is yelling, you know, but they're still aging. And yeah. So anyway, everybody have a good month, and we'll see everybody next month.